Okay. Alright, I think I'm good. Oh my goodness. Howdy, Xavier, fighting Bale after the flower. Cool, cool. Hope it goes well. Hey, I am. Yeah, sorry. Sorry for the extra late, stream today. Some stuff happened. Some major stuff happened. How are you today? Could be better. Could certainly be better. Could be worse, though, too. So we'll manage. Ooh. At least you're fine? I don't know about fine, but good enough, I suppose. So no corpse here. That's in reference to that over there. No corpse. No corpse. 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 Back to the Minds of the Slave today? Yeah, pretty much. Also, here we go. Oh, wait. I didn't have music on. I was like, oh, I have the audio. There's the chest down there. That's where we just were, right? Yeah. Oh, there's a corpse here. So why is it that we... Alright, so... My thoughts. My first thought process is the idea is you have the items but no corpses because the bodies have been taken, right? So rather than killed, they were, for lack of a better word, stolen. So the question is, are these supposed to be the men who are kidnapped by Dominula? Yeah, we do have arrows and stuff, so there does seem to be some signs of conflict. I don't know what's wrong with YouTube. It just recommended me the Gwyn did nothing wrong video. What's wrong with that, Nobre? Get some diversity of opinion. Yeah, this is... interesting. There we go. Something like this, right? Quit is a terrible dad video on YouTube. It's like saying Griffith did nothing wrong. Yeah, there's a... I don't know how you look at giant slaves and be like, oh no, he did nothing wrong. It's like, you know. I think we might have to define terms on that. Nothing? Nothing we're saying? Oh, so how was your day, Loki? Bro, could have been better, no, bro. Could have definitely been better. There we go. Wonder what they say about the women then? You mean the Dominula women? The Dominula women did nothing wrong. Everyone has a right to survive. And, you know, needs must. Also, respect their religious traditions. Don't you get it, chat? Oh god, that's... For some reason. There we go. No, I meant like America. You know, I bet you people would defend that too. Listen, I bet, especially if you probably subscribe to the... Oh yeah, America, you know, she just really wanted to have revenge against the Hornset. It's like, you know, they hurt her people. She really wanted to, like, you know, get back at them. It's like, yeah, that's why she waited forever to do, you know, like, that's someone who's, like, really hell-bent on revenge. You know, she's not just playing the long game. She's playing, like, the extra super long game. The type of game where you wait until you have a lot of other things that you care much more about that threaten you personally that makes you decide, hey, you know what? I want to go have revenge. Oh. So she made her kid there as well. You see, listen, sometimes, you know, every woman has a right to choose. And when she has a right to choose, sometimes you just consider it a fourth trimester abortion, you know? It's just a little belated. Sometimes you don't know until a few hundred years in whether or not you really can afford a kid, you know? You know, you don't realize, it's like, oh, you know, I didn't realize the kid had Down syndrome at the time, you know? How was I supposed to get all this black flame mental illness? America's a good ruler, but a terrible parent. I would definitely say she's an effective politician like Gwyn, for sure. Sometimes you have to buy milk. No, but, on a serious thing, like, yeah, like, listen, it's like saying Lawrence did nothing wrong. Like, here's the thing, if you want to do a in defense of Gwyn or something, I can understand the argument if you want to talk about, like, look at all the benefits of the kingdom is. Now, you could argue that for the long term that wasn't good, but maybe you could try to say, you know what, up until then, though, everything was fine. And, you know, I'd agree with that. I was like, yeah, Gwyn's very effective as a politician, a ruler, everything he built, like, you gotta give him credit for that, right? And I never denied that. But it gets ridiculous when, like, people are trying to, like, rewrite and be like, guys, come on. Like, the most positive stuff you can say about Gwyn is, like, at the start of the game, where everyone is essentially worshipping him. Everything from that point on across the games is very obviously pointing in the direction to say, like, yeah, this guy's kind of awful. It's like trying to say that the Healing Church did nothing wrong. Like, Lawrence, you know, Lawrence wasn't that bad. He was just trying to, you know, he was trying to advance the human race. He just maybe, you know, he just, you know, he made a little few oopsies along the way, you know? He stumbled. Advance of Gwyn, he took Seathan. Yeah, look at that worked out, huh, Gwyn? But yeah, it's... Like, what more can I say, right? Yeah, okay, so I think the missing bodies are supposed to indicate where Dominula got their bodies from. And they have these set up, you know, these little gateway things with the arrows in them to kind of tell us about the conflict with the locals. I'm still trying to figure out where the hell the Deathblight came from. The best I can think of is that the shaded wood slugs we see here, because they have the maggots in them, and that there's also the basilisks who do the death thing, which I can't recall if the death that the basilisks release has any of the maggots get released along with them or not. But that's the best I can think of, is like, oh, some of the death got in the slugs for some reason migrated to this town, and they spread the death blight like rats, essentially, right? And they couldn't use rats because they don't have any maggoty rats, so they used maggoty slugs. The only other thing I can think of is that's because the slugs come from here, and it's more related to, you know, the death blight tree and stuff there, right? That's the alternative source I can think of. It has flies? Oh, and the maggots become the flies. Okay. So yeah, that could be it too. I'm trying to think if it could have anything to do with the destroyed bridge and the carriage down here. Like, the carriage might have had, like, some Patient Zeros type shit or something. I'm still not entirely sold on why we're taking bodies and we're, like, dragging them through across this bridge, you know, around here and down over to Gelmir. I don't know why the dead are going there. Unless Morgoth's like, listen, if I throw them more corpses, eventually we'll create a wall of corpses. No, but yeah, I like, as Acer and I go over in our podcast and stuff, like, you go over this stuff and it's like, yeah. Like, there's, it's cool to explore, like, alternative, you know, theories and perspectives and things like that. But at some point, you just kind of have to accept that, like, yeah, the game's not leaving any room to doubt who the bad guys are. Like, let's not pretend that Gwyn is this paragon of virtue who's been terribly misunderstood by everything, and, you know, he's been totally abused by the big bag Dark, and he was totally right to be scared of it and stuff. It's like, that's like the white slaver who, it's like the white slaver who, like, you know, it's like, oh, there's the blacks are rebelling. See, this is why we have to enslave them, because if we don't keep that damn Negro down in chains, they're gonna rise up and kill everybody. It's like, bitch, the only reason they did that was because of you. Like, you're responsible for this. And that's the thing, is the lack of, like, you know, thinking on that part where it's like, come on, this is, like, this isn't hard. I got Bale in less than 10 tries. Awesome, Xavier. Congrats. It's absolutely willful ignorance, for sure. Like I said, there's a lot of room for ambiguity on, like, some characters' motivation stuff, but with characters like Gwyn, it's like, come on. Come on, like, after 3 games, like, are we gonna, like, still go with this? It's how I feel about the America Revenge thing. I'm like, really? Have we not thought about, like, the timeline? Have we not thought about, like, all the weird inconsistencies with, like, the assessment of just America wants revenge or whatever like this? Right, like, this is all poor, abused America. She was terribly, you know, wronged, and then she did all that for revenge. Like, really? Really? BAM! Yeah. Speaking of, Ancient Dragon War's out. Is going to be coming out, I should say. I am very happy with how the draft is looking. The whole reason I didn't want to post it, like, a year ago, even though I had, like, most of the pieces, was I couldn't find a good justification for why the actual war was happening, right? Like, I was like, why is it happening here, then? Like, there were so many question marks I had, right? I didn't want to, like, go into a post without actually, like, explaining that on my thoughts with everything on the timeline and everything. But now that we have, like, oh, literally, like, a few events before that, it was the whole, putting the Realm of Shadow in the Realm of Shadow. So it's like, oh, yeah. You know, when their entire single-minded focus is, like, getting at Bale and his progeny, and you're kind of, you know, disrupting their whole effort there, it's like, yeah, you know what? They're gonna start looking and being like, hey, are you responsible for this? Do we need to do something? I'm not seeing anything else in this area, though, that catches my eye, so... I forget what item is there. Okay, yeah, so I think this is... I think the fact that some of the bodies are being missing is to highlight how they've been abducted, right? Like, they're abducted, like, you know, the items fall out of their pockets, you know, that type of jazz. And so, as a result, they don't have time, right? And then there's others who have died because of the disease and stuff that's happening, which, again, I think I'd have to think over why it's happening here. It makes sense in Far Missoula, right? Because we see the Death Flight routes and stuff, even though it's not in the exact area where we see these guys, right? But you can always argue those guys are being quarantined, right? It's like, okay, we're throwing in this corner. Since drafting the Ancient Dragon War piece now, might be time to look at the Dragon Bolt Grease and in your link. I don't think so, because if I recall, isn't that having to do more with Bale and Far Missoula stuff? Maybe I'll mention it when I'm talking about the crest for the cult and stuff, and how it gets adopted, right? Because I assume I'd be talking mostly about the crest in a Far Missoula thing, right? But yeah, I'm very happy to getting Ancient Dragon War out of the way, because, you know, it's a nice connecting piece between Liurnian War and Fringe Folk Rebellion, right? It helps kind of bridge a lot of important events together, like, you know, the whole Godfrey's absence in Liurnian War, his obvious presence then in Fringe Folk Rebellion. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever was going on with Godfrey before, as I say, probably having to do with the Omen twins. You know, Grand Sax probably, you know, snapped him out of his funk. It's kind of like, hey, I got more important things to do than just mope. I'm big, strong, tough guy. I should act like it. Oh, it has to do with Godwin's Knights and stuff. Okay, then I'll make sure to add that, because I don't think I have that grease in the data. I have everything else related to those knights, but I don't recall having that. Maybe I do, but I'll make sure to include it if I don't. Yeah, because maybe it's the dragon pots I'm thinking of, but I remember there being some pots that had like the crest on it. I was like, okay, gotta include that for like a Farm Azula thing. However, the reason Deathblight appears in thorns is because Goblin was buried at a minor Erd tree and it was influenced by the Erd tree's impenetrable thorns. Ooh, I like that idea, Xavier. Ooh, like it could be coincidence. Again, it could just be a thematic thing, right? It's kind of like, oh look, you know, like Death, and he latched onto the roots and stuff like that, so he has the thorn, and they take the shape of resembling thorns or whatever when they're supposed to be, quote unquote tentacles. But no, damn, I really like that idea though. That's like actually influenced. I'll have to think on that one. Yeah, so these guys, that makes sense. Obviously we have more of them over there. I forget if I mentioned that the ancient golems get repurposed by America's Kingdom or not. It's a Loki stream. Oh, I'm trying to think. Okay, yeah, let's just go to Farm Azula, I think, now. I think I have all the stuff I want from this area. Just wanted to confirm a few things. We have our friend here. Got some of that gravel stone, obviously the cookbook that has the pots that require Fulgur blooms. You have the lightning bolt here. Yeah, then the other stuff I connect to other areas. The only thing that I'm still curious about is the Scorpion Kite Shield. Like, does that have to do with does that have to do with anything related to this area? Because again, we only see Scorpion stuff. Like, the closest we get to it is like Wyndham from here, and then also obviously Gelmir. Gelmir has assassin stuff, so is this like foreshadowing like on the way to Gelmir? This is the only shield where I'm like, I don't know why this is like they decided, okay, we're gonna have this sold in this area. I guess you could also make the case it's a reference to surprise attacks and sudden strikes. It's a reference to Dominula. Like, Dominula suddenly comes upon them to abduct their men, right? I guess that could be the idea. Like, this is like a shield that was used there. Or at the very least, it's, it could be like, oh, any random soldier might have had this, but it's referencing, it's alluding to that. Could be a remnant of the Spider Scorpion population, except we don't see anything connected to that here. That's the problem. Unless the argument is that the ancient Civ ruins here, they want to make an allusion to it. Maybe that's the idea, right? Oh yeah, the ancients, like, and that might be the best explanation because it's in the middle. It's like, oh yeah, this was, ancient Civ territory once upon a time. Where are those slugs in the doors? Let's look at that for a second. It has to do with the dragon surprise attacking Langdell. Except the battle here is the last land of the Ancient Dragon War. Grand Saxon would be the first, so I'm not sure if it makes sense to have his shield be used there in association when everything else has to do with this final battle here. Like, maybe if it was this guy here, I would buy that more. I don't know. I'd have to think on that one. Yeah, I think by default, I would just, like, be, like, probably connected to the Dominula there, since that's the most relevant thing in the immediate area with the Woodfolk ruins. Yeah, I get what you're saying, nice guy. I'm thinking, like, they don't leave anything else there, so it would just be the shield. So it's like, okay, do they want us to make that big of an inference? Especially, again, in the absence, before there were DLC or anything, right? To add more context. I don't know. I do not know. This is just our normal thing, yeah. Yeah, these are good ideas, though, guys. Keep them coming. Again, I always appreciate even the ideas I disagree with or not totally buying. I love hearing this stuff because, it gets my brain juices going. You said something about those missing bodies at Dominola. Do you think those became the Wormface and wandered to Woodfolk Ruins? No, I don't think so. I thought about that initially, but I'm like, that doesn't really make much sense on having it where they drop their items and stuff like that, right? And again, in the context of, well, Dominula is getting these bodies that they're, you know, doing their cannibalism stuff from somewhere, right? And the fact that it's bodies specifically, like here, here, and here, i.e. the places closest to Dominula, but then you have bodies like here, here, and like here that are actually still existent, right? I think you notice the pattern. It's, oh, bodies within a radius of the Dominula area are missing, while the ones farther back seem to have just died, you know, and are normal corpses. So I'm willing to buy abduction more, because if the idea was, alright, how are we going to convey that people from Woodfolk Ruins were in conflict with Dominula and were getting abducted to be part of their profane rituals here. Okay, well, one good way to do that would be to show that you have this gate here and you have arrow-ridden little, you know, posts and stuff trying to prevent, like, any siege or anything, right? Like, so you have this here, so it'll be like, okay, these two parties here, they've been in conflict. But then, you have some of the areas where you normally would put corpses and have items on those corpses, but then have the items missing. I mean, the corpses missing, I'm sorry. You just have the items. So that way you can indicate that there should be someone or something here. That obviously someone or something dropped something here, or left it behind, or had it, you know, fall out of their pockets or something. But the actual person is not here, right? And it's not in any, like, you know, location like, oh, there's a grave here, and I think we get, like, Gravelstone or something from that grave with the you know, the Mad Pumpkinhead boy, right? When you have something like that, it's like, okay, clearly the storytelling is trying to tell us that, like, you know, there are supposed to be bodies here, but the bodies were taken. Where were the bodies taken? Okay, the bodies were taken probably by Dominula. That would make the most sense to me. More than the worm faces, where it's like, the worm faces are everywhere, regardless of the location. So if they want to insinuate that the worm faces are it, either there should be no bodies, period, or they should be having, like, a mix of no bodies all throughout. Again, instead of, like, splitting it, like, half and half. Yeah, I don't think the actual Wormface transformation has anything to do with Dominula. I think that's separate. I think it has to do with the slugs, which is why we're here. I'm trying to see where we have... Where are the slugs? Because could that be indication? Because aren't they supposed to be on the walls or something here? Oh my God. That killed me? Is the tree shield that the guy sells related to the Hornsent trees? No, I think it's related to the minor Erd tree. Again, this idea of, you know, Erd tree growing, twisting, crisscrossing, you know, forming into its own, and we see this with the minor Erd trees, right? Right. Same idea. So I don't think it has anything to do with the Hornsent. They're hanging out on the ceiling of the arches in the moat. I'm pretty sure somewhere on the walls here, though, right? Am I crazy? I could have sworn some of them were also here, which is why I'm looking. The slugs have worms replacing their eye stalks, so they are probably the source. Oh, is that the ones in Woodfolk? I thought it was only Farum Azula, but I may be misremembering. Yeah, I gotta brush up on my slug lore. I gotta brush up on my slug lore. No slugs in Farum Azula, if I recall. Okay, that has to be the Woodfolk one. Yeah, okay. Because the argument would be that if it's in the Woodfolk ruins, that the slugs themselves were infected after the fact. But then there's the question of, why did the devs put them there? Like, why of all the random places would you put a random ruin and be like, oh, you know what this needs? Slugs. Right? Because the obvious association with slugs, going back to Dark Souls 3, I guess you could argue, even back to Dark Souls 1 with, like, the leeches and stuff, right? Was there, you know, they're vermin, they're associated with, like, decay, like, you see them in Valley Defilement and stuff in the same capacity, right? You know, the idea that, you know, they exist in this dirty, corrupted place, right? So the idea that they bring filth and disease and stuff, similar to rats, like, that's definitely consistent. But, you know, why not then use rats if the idea was to portray disease? Well, you don't have maggots on your rat model, but you do have maggots on your, Yeah, you're right there. There's quite a few here. I'm trying to think of like a Patient Zero scenario, like Slug somehow got on this carriage, and when the carriage collapsed or whatever into the ravine with the bridge, they got out and started infecting the town. Like that's the only thing I can. That's the only thing I can think of. I'm trying to explain how we would have the infection spreading here, right? Yeah, they're not stocks. You could always argue though that it's like an earlier stage, right? But yeah, they could be just totally normal, ordinary slugs. But again, the question would be then, why here? Because if I recall correctly, is it just here on Altus where they're used? Again, normal slugs, not burning slugs. Like, where else do we see normal slugs used besides here in Altus? Do you have hints on how Deathblight got into Farum? It's along the Erdtree routes there, or the Great Routes, to use the technical term, right? And combined with what we see in, now originally the question was, in the base game, if the Great Roots, infecting with Godwyn stuff meant that Farum Azula didn't get struck by the meteor and went into the sky until after the Night of the Black Knives, right? Like, Farum Azula, for whatever reason, like, the war resolved, and they were still, like, kind of just doing their thing, you know, on land, connecting Caelid and mountaintops for a while. But after the Realm of Shadow, what we see with Godwyn's faces and stuff, and we know for sure that the Night of the Black Knives takes place after the Realm of Shadow gets hidden away, right? So, I think we can say with absolute certainty that it doesn't matter if the roots are physically connected or not. Godwyn's infection, like, I don't know, goes, like, through magic through the roots, so it can manifest anywhere along the network. Yeah, no, Night Scout. I'm saying that there has been that possibility, and I have, in fact, I've been open to it. But I think now with the DLC and out, I think we can firmly say, yeah, no, that's probably not it. I think it's far more likely now that we can say, yeah, it's whatever's going on with, like, Godwyn and the Death Roots, it's not just purely, like, a physical, it's not just traveling like a physical disease, there's something metaphysical about it. Hello. I'm just a humble, Sorry, mate. We don't allow shit like that here. Sorry, mate. We don't allow that type of crap here. Go do that somewhere else. At Castle Sol. Yeah, and I've talked about the possible connection there, but it'd be like burning slugs, but then the Deathblight gets them, and the two kind of cancel it out, so they just have a little bit of maggots. They're not full, they're not full, worm eye stalks. So is it just then Castle Sol and Altus? I don't know, possibilities they relate to Deathbirds since they have Deathblight screams and they have met. But we see Godwyn's corruption on parts of Farum Azula, Night Scout, so I think that's less likely. I think that's highly unlikely. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, do we ever see anything involving maggots or flies or whatever related to Deathbirds? Or do they just have the Death Flame or the Spirit Flame or whatever that they do? Yeah, you will not be missed. It's like, yeah, listen, I don't need trolls in this chat, listen. You want to go horse around, like, do it somewhere else. Yeah, this is just a moat. I could have swore that you had some on these walls, but I guess I'm just crazy, I really thought there were, like, some just kind of hanging up here, and they, like, come down when you pass by. Maybe I'm misremembering it for, like, the Noxtella snail snakes or whatever. Maybe that's it. Yeah, I guess so. I have a recollection that the worm faces worms are called earthworms for some reason. Yeah, there's a term that's used. Again, it can refer to earthworms, but it's used for worms in general. Like, you know, it's what, you know, it's like when you call, like, a spider, like, a bug or whatever. It's like, oh, that's not technically the term. Yeah, but it gets used that way colloquially a lot, right? Same idea. You know, anything that kind of looks like, you know, a wormy, maggoty thing, right? Hey, Tyrone. Alright, I guess we're gonna go over here now. Just to be absolutely certain. Now, obviously, we have a lot of the Godwin influence in this area. All the skeletons and everything. All those who live in death. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's nothing around the walls here. Oh. Nope. Nope, nothing. Nothing standing out. Dead. Not the dead who yet live. Those are different. Those who live in death and the dead who yet live. Totally different. Not to be mistaken for the living who are still dead. Or the dead who are up until now alive. You'll get called racist if you make a mistake there, so don't conflate them. Very important classifications. Are there remnants of a road between the Morn Graveyard and the road where Margaret attacks? The map road seems curiously detached despite the staircase. No, in terms of highway, no. Erdtree Highway goes like this, and there's nothing really, as far as I could recall, like this. I'll be honest, I don't think many people use this side route, you know, through this graveyard. I'm pretty sure the Mord Hero is probably the only guy that went through this place with any degree of regularity. You know? But let's see. Maybe if I get a bird's eye view, I'll be able to give you guys a better look. Nope. If there was a road, it sure as hell ain't surviving this battlefield. We just got the staircase here, you know? And again, you can make arguments on whether or not you think the darker stone is intentional with connection to the stone bridge here and hints at, like, you know, older architecture or whatever, right? Kind of see a road? I do. Well, I don't. I don't know how you're kind of seeing a road here. Like, look at that. That's a whole lot of brown on everything. Not much of a road you can make out. No, we're not. If you're talking about up here, then yes, obviously there are roads, Night Scout. But we're talking down here. You said to from where Morgott is. No. Look, you see that we'll get an interview on Night Rain this month? No, I did not. Cool to hear. It's always good to have more transparency about the new game with all the possible risks that are involved. Which again, I'm still cautiously optimistic on it. I think it's going to be a fun romp if nothing else. I could be wrong. This could be an absolute disaster of a title that it's just not going to work. It's going to feel very jank and, you know, very much an experimental project. Though I would still be okay with that. I have no problem with them actually doing those kind of weird experimentation, because that's been kind of missing from FromSoft and a lot of their recent titles. A bit too much polish for my taste. My only issue would be that then why did you take the brand risk then on something so experimental if you were going to, you know, damage the brands to both Dark Souls and Elden Ring by conflating them in such a, you know, blatantly absurd way. But you know, that's a separate point of discussion. All right, we're going to Farm Azula. Loki needs more jank. It's not even jank. It's just, you know, creativity and stuff, right? Like, people complain, for example, about, like, the missing covenants and stuff in Elden Ring, which I think is fair. Do I think they're absolutely necessary? Do I get why they cut them? Sure. But do I think that it still would have been nice to have them in there? Yeah. And, like, a lot of that stuff just kind of gets removed. It just loses some of the character, right? Like, I think that's one thing with Elden Ring is that it's just very polished. And it's got a good, strong enough identity. I think it survives beyond that. But it just feels like it doesn't have a lot of that, you know, kind of inspired, like, you know, creative randomness, you know. No, I know what you mean. I'm just teasing. Yeah, I know. I get you guys. I know you guys aren't being, like, too serious, but, like, I'm just trying to, like, you know, explain my thought process. Let's see. Considering that's still a path into Langdale, the Lekka Roads is curious, along with anyone visiting the Ariza Graves, if those took visitors. I mean, granted, with the Ariza Graves, all you need to do is walk out the side entrance and then take the circuitous route around down there. You don't need to go through the graveyard, which I think is the idea. Most people taking along the highway are going to stay on the highway. That graveyard's just going to sit there doing nothing, right? And then you have the side route, which will let you go out and get to the graveyards if you really want to bury that there. Which I think is the idea. Actually, you know what? Now that you mentioned that, Night Scout, let's take a look at what the road is like for that bridge and stuff. Because actually, I'm not familiar. Like, do we have a dirt road? Like, do we have dirt roads that actually, like, extend all the way through there? Or... yeah, let's go. I mean, the map is showing dirt roads, so that's something. Problem is the visitor of the grave might not be living in Langdale. I'll be honest, I don't know what visitors would be visiting these graves if they're not living in Langdale. And even if they weren't living in Langdale, why not go to the graves after entering Langdale, right? You go to Langdale, if you get permission or whatever you need, and then take the escort down, right? Again, I get the feeling that, like, just the way things are set up, I just don't think this area was seeing much activity. I don't think it would have been seeing enough activity to justify having, you know, dirt roads established. Yeah, we have dirt roads here, dirt road here. I don't really see it here, though. Oh, no, yeah, it's here. It's just earlier. Yeah, it's not that. It's not there. It's here. Yeah, and now you see. Okay. Yeah, and then it goes here, and one goes to the hero's grave, and the other... okay, that answers that question. And now for the important question. Let's have our little tour of good old FA. Graveyard has surprisingly good roads. I imagine because of the people that they were burying there and stuff, if I had to guess. Yeah, I think the actual burial was probably done, and then once that was done, okay. We're just never going to touch this again. And when they set up the Erdtree highways and stuff, okay, we don't need to go there anymore, right? Versus, again, with, like, say, the Ariza Hero's grave, well, not all the Ariza Heroes are necessarily, you know, dying, you know, during, like, you know, the initial war when that tomb was probably set up. So you're probably going to have some that are dying off, you know, throughout the timeline. As a result, you're going to have more people who are going to go down that road to have to rebury them, people who visit, mourners, blah, blah, blah. Maybe people who want to pay their respects, like you were mentioning earlier, right? I think when you take all that together, yeah, that makes sense to me then, why there would still be a road, right? Okay, question. What do you guys think? Do you think this is normal Beastmen behavior? Or do you think this is something to do with, like, oh, you know, civilizations collapsed and so they're now succumbing to wildness? Because this is, like, the first impression they want to give us when we, you know, get to Farm Azula. It's seeing a bunch of these guys kind of munching down like beasts, like dogs. Now the Beastmen are zombies too, look at their knees. I can't believe that they're kind of like the quote-unquote hollows we see in the rest of the area, sure. I have no idea. It's a very weird thing. I'm willing to say it's probably just wildness. Because they want to kind of show how this is different, right? Like, they want to give that first impression. Because we don't see it much anywhere else, right? The rest kind of function as, like, you know, standard guard enemies. God. Oh, I never killed you. That's funny. Ace use weapons can imply they have a bit of intelligence. Well, yes, obviously. The fact that they're beast men, you know, they have thumbs, they're using tools and stuff. They're obviously intelligent, right? Especially if they're subjects of a beast kingdom, you know. They have a beast king, or, well, they had a beast king, you know. Right. First, like, really good look at some of, like, the stone and gold burial practices they do. Return to Draco. Get some of our, like, quarantined folks over there. Oh, we got this guy doing his thing. I guess that's their anime. There's nothing for him to actually eat on, so if I had to guess, this is probably an animation, so that way you don't see the enemy right away when you're coming down, and then he comes up and starts attacking you. If I had to guess, that's probably the idea. So this guy gets triggered, starts moving. Ah! Huh. Yeah, but I just realized they really don't want you back here, huh? Huh. That's funny. Cool. I'm pretty sure I have other shots of that stuff, but I don't know. I really like that one, so. Anything else here that we're really crazy about? No, not really. Honestly, I want to take shots. It would probably be of the corpses from the war. I'd also like to get shots of the Crucible Knights, but I'm pretty sure they're all dead. Pretty sure I already killed them. Can you clip the camera through the clergyman's statue job and see what healthy beastman limbs look like? You're making an awful big assumption there, Night Scout, that they bothered to model that, but sure, I can check that. My default is that they did. There's nothing underneath there except, you know, blank, empty void. Man, it sucks to be wormy, huh? Sucks to have worms. Watch what you eat, kids. I'm trying to think, do we actually see... I don't think we see any of these trees used in the DLC, right? Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure any red trees we see there are different red trees. Yeah, giant one doesn't respawn. I forget. Are the no? They're still green. Cool. So if we go from that angle, we can probably get a really good one. The problem is that there's all that red stuff there, so a lot of these shots are just gonna be me having like, oh, for a future character we have this. I'm gonna want to retake it. ×5 speed platforming! Fun fact, the concept art of the Beast Clergyman statue looks more like their actual petrified people. I can believe that. I can totally buy that, but yeah, they definitely look like just ordinary statues when you look at them from there. But you know what? I guess, like, if they're petrified, like, clearly it's doing the job right, huh? I guess that would be the argument. And just, you know, no one there for good measure. This guy's got the shortest patrol pay. He's like, yep, this is all I gotta do. No one's gonna come through here without my watch. Do you think the Drake circling the city indicate the Bales faction won and they're closing for the kill? Night Scout, I came out with a draft, and I do in fact talk about the dragons there, but to keep it short, no, I think it's supposed to kind of evoke something similar to the idea of, you know, vultures coming for wounded prey. Like, they see what's happened to Farum Azula, and this is, like, kind of their chance to kind of, like, you know, go around waiting. They're just waiting for that. They're waiting for the body to finally expire, for the carcass to finally be there, ripe for the pickings, right? I think they're basically just waiting for that, right? And with, you know, Placky around, you know, keeping the storm and stuff alive, you know, Farum Azula is, like, still on life support, right? I think that's probably the idea, you know? The vultures are circling overhead, as it were. Oh, that's actually a really good one to look at, too, here. I don't know if this actually... One second. I don't know if this is actually connected to the Deathbirds at all, if it's just like some generic thing they were coming up with, right? Or something where like, oh, this looks like vaguely Avian / Draco or whatever, right? But I think it's definitely worth the discussion. Probably the 5th Loki stream. Yep, 5th Loki stream. We gotta be extra certain, right? You know, this makes me now wonder, was this a wyvern killed? Was this from a wyvern killed during the, the attack on Placky by Bale, or could this be just from the war? And they're like, look what we brought back, Mom! Because we have the giant wyvern in the DLC, right? But he still has his head, so obviously it's not that guy. No, I do not talk about, like, Placky and his thing between time, because one, I don't think he's actually, you know, already dead. Like, literally, it says that, you know, the term used means, like, between time, similar to how we get, like, the lands between and something like that. And I always understood that just to mean, you know, he's in his own pocket dimension in time and space within the tornado. I don't think it's something like, you know, I don't think it means he's in the past. Yeah. Yeah, that's not how you would normally word that in Japanese if you're trying to say something to that effect. It's very much, I think, about this idea where he's, like, sort of, like, you know... How do I put this? Like, he's existing outside of time within that space inside the tornado. Now, what does that mean for storms and tornadoes and winds and all that stuff about time and space and all that jazz? I don't know. Visually, the tornado spins backwards and the ruins come back to it. I assume you mean from the cutscene and stuff? Well, yes, because they're trying to drag all the pieces in together for the purposes of restoring the arena inside the tornado. Like, the tornado also grows, if you recall, and brings us inside as it's doing all this, right? So if you want to make the argument, you could argue how it's, quote-unquote, reversing the time of that, but I'm pretty sure that in terms of the actual space inside the tornado where Placky exists, that yes, it is, quote-unquote, between time. It is like its own little separate time-space dimension, you know, a pocket dimension, as we often call those. Right? Oh, let's get an idea of that shot with the green trees. Yeah, like a snapshot. That's another way to word it, like a snapshot type of idea, right? Like, again, I think the idea is basically is that, like, you know, Placky's inside that tornado. He's the quote-unquote winding dragon, right? As I stated in my draft, I'm now coming to the idea that I think the meteor is a result of sorcerers, either from Celia or, you know, astrologer ruins. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like, take your pick. Like, you know, there's a lot of, like, activity going between the two areas through Far Missoula, right? So a few settle in here, right? And then during the war, essentially, a bunch of them are like, well, what are we going to do with the beast clergy? And the beast clergymen, they're like, well, we like stone, and astrologers are like, and we like stars. And so they come together and be like, okay, well, if we both take what we like, we can, like, you know, use a meteor. And this will be, like, our last-ditch effort to try to, you know, turn the tides in this battle. And we know how that all turned out, right? So, kind of like what we see with Radahn, right? With the whole, you know, seemingly being responsible for summoning the meteors. Ah, man, we have to go up to the town area, huh? Yeah. Okay. They really, really want to make sure that, you know, if you don't see something from your angle, they want to make sure to deload this crap. I guess because there's just so much that you can look at one time. Like the Chalice Dungeons? No, because Chalice Dungeons are like a spiritual simulation, right? Like, it's sort of like this, you know, mental dimension that's recreating a period of time, right? It's not actually, like, manipulating time and space itself, per se, right? Well, I guess you could say it's manipulating time and space in terms of, like, you know, it's transferring you to a, you know, a different dimension, you know, on the, you know, the mental side of the Bloodborne universe, right? Oh, rather than your physical world. But I wouldn't say it's like this, it functions, you know, anything similar to Chalice Dungeons in that sense. Some From Software have really small capitals, huh? I mean, to be fair, they do talk about how Far Missoula is, like, mostly, like, you know, they treat it mostly as a mausoleum. You also have it referenced as a temple, right? Like a House of God type of temple. Well, okay, technically in Japanese, it's more like, you know, manor or palace of God, you know, mansion, you know, that type of, you know, I guess you could even say, like, Hall of God, right? But you get the idea, right? So it's like what we call a church, a House of God, right? So like, there's several different terminology they use for it. So it's big city. It's big graveyard. It's also big church. That's what it is. Now, if I had to guess, I have to guess like the, you know, if we were to get technical, if I had to guess, I'd probably say this is the, you know, the house, the actual quote-unquote house of God thing there, considering what we see enshrined inside, right? Because the other term for temple here, or like a temple or a church or things of that nature, is used for the underground area where we have like the transept and stuff, right? With the dragon head and things of that nature, so. I don't think that is involved. God, I will say it again, this game can look so goddamn pretty, chat. It's like, it's not even funny. Like, how does From do it? How do they do it? That'll work. Look, no break. Could you check if the Malekith Arena has... Oh, that's true, true. Maybe Malekith Arena has some internal naming that could, like, indicate it. Like, they call it, like, I don't know, like the big church or the great cathedral or something like that, you know? Would these beastmen have to be Deathblight before they were lynched in the trees to become skeleton warriors? I don't think so. Generally speaking, when it comes to them hanging, I don't think outside of the first guy that we see hanging... Where is it? Here. I'll be honest, I don't think it's very lore relevant when we find, you know, skeletons hanging versus skeletons buried underground versus all that jazz. Maybe you could make it all broadly fit if you're like, you know, some of them we wanted to really make sure when we buried them that we buried them by hanging their corpses to trees or something, right? I mean, maybe you can make that case that some of them, they were, like, egregiously bad. They decided that not all need to be, like, put in the earth or whatever. But considering the idea is supposed to be they're touching the death rune and stuff, and that's what's making them animated and stuff, I think it's just a way to have some variety in how the, you know, it's similar to how we have variety of, like, different, like, combinations of a lot of different generic gravestones. So that way not every graveyard looks the exact same, right? I think it's the same idea probably with, like, you know, some of them are, like, you know, some of them are bones that are just on the ground here. Some of them are actually going to dig themselves out of the earth. Some of them are hanging from, like, you know, a tree or whatever, right? Or some of them are just walking around already. I think that's the idea. I think the point is to again, minimize the amount of repetition. Some underground section referred to as America's Ruins for the catacombs or for FA specifically. That'd be really funny if they had thought of a deeper America connection at one point for FA. America's the original FA god confirmed. And before, like, America's actually a reincarnation of every god. Like, every god just goes through, like, a cycle of reincarnation. So they have a quote-unquote new life, but then they become god and they have all the memories of their past lives. Underground lands between, like, the rivers? Ah. So, like, the areas with the Nox and stuff, right? Okay. Looks cool. Really? 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 Ah! I love that they have their own dogs. They could have so easily used generic dogs for this and stuff, right? Again, it's one of those things where, yeah, there's always reasons to not do something for as a developer, but when they do something, it's something you have to applaud. Am I crazy? I don't remember that there being all these gold pieces on skeletons. I feel like that's special. Loki's the ER depiction in Farm, just an exaggerated depiction of the Elden Ring? I don't think so. I think it's, I don't know if I'd say it's 100% accurate per se. It might still be a stylized somewhat, but I would say it's probably a closer, it's a closer approximation of what the Elden Ring during Farm Azula's time actually looked like. If it wasn't for those goddamn little particles. You know what? That's gonna be a future Loki problem. Future Loki can worry about that shit. I'm past Loki now. Yeah, I was wondering if the bones, if the only difference is the head. But this is definitely, at the very least, again, putting the bones aside, there's definitely, I think, something added here. Right? I have to assume this is also true for the ones in, what's it called? It's similar, Julie, on the living ones, I think. Yeah, it definitely looks like it's the same style, right? Dragon Pit one might have minor differences. Yeah, we'll take a look at that one now. Because I think I've looked through this area a bunch, and we've already taken shots of Farm Azula and stuff before, so I'm not, like, too crazy about getting many more shots. Because, like I said, maybe if I start looking up, like, specific corpses and stuff, we can get them. But I think as far as the Ancient Dragon... Rude! As far as the Ancient Dragon War is concerned, I think I've covered, I think I've got, like, most of the stuff covered that's relevant, right? Because most of my shots would have to go to, you know, actual, theoretical Farm Azula thesis, right? Let's look here. Down the pit! No, I'm pretty sure it's all the same. Yep, it's all the same. Might vary between skeletons, but it's all the same basic pieces from what I can tell. You know? Either the big beast skeletons can breathe fire? Yeah, they can. I do wish their textures were a little less, you know, shit. Is that anything on my end? What even does HDR do? It seems to just make things uglier on your guys' end. I'm being honest. I'm not seeing the benefit. We have to get out of here if I want to look at it. Yeah, no. When it comes to graphics and stuff, I think I have to log out. Yeah, Yeah, so this guy doesn't have it around his neck, but he does have some on his legs. And a few on his arm. So yeah, there is, it's definitely consistent for all of them. It's amazing how that doesn't technically put me in combat. Look at all that blood. Blood, blood, glorious blood. You know, in light of the blood that we see there, I wonder if that's, I wonder if we can connect that to some of the stuff we see generally in FA for these vessels. Also, the fact that we see this stuff here and, the conflict and stuff here would predate, like, the thing with the Realm of Shadow and stuff. That means I can push back. Because originally I was like, okay, I gotta put it the Fringe Folk Rebellion at latest, because I can't be absolutely sure, like, the exact, relationship between Farm Azula proper and the farm colonies, right? But now we can definitely say that, okay, it looks like, you know, Sun Capital and, Farm Azula were having, you know, pretty good relations and stuff. If you move the free cam up, is there, blood in the smaller base? I don't think so. Yeah, it's empty. I think this is more so for Shrine, you know? Now, again, it could also be similar to America's thing, where it's a vessel for the gold, like a drop of gold or whatever, right? I don't know, maybe it would be like drop of golden blood or something. Like, I don't know how it would work with the Elden Ring, you know, not being a tree, not being in a, you know, in a tree at that point, but... Okay. There we go. Some weird previous form of the Crucible. Again, well, it wouldn't be the Crucible as the Erd Tree. It would be, you know, it'd be the Crucible before it became the Crucible. You know, when it's just the Elden Ring and stuff, right? But I guess you could always argue there could be some other, you know, kind of pseudo-Crucible type form it would take. Did you want the location? No, I already have the prayer books in my, again, it's all there in the draft. I already have that stuff all noted down, and again, it's gonna be all part of the Ancient Dragon Cult, section I'll be working through over the rest of the week. I think the thing that interests me the most is how we have, you know, we have Fulgur blooms, which are when, like, you know, they're tinged with slight lightning, right? So the idea is, like, they're the weakest form of blooms we get, but then the DLC is the only place where we can get, like, you know, quote-unquote yellow Fulgur blooms. Like, they're already yellow, right? But they're, like, emphasizing how, like, you know, they're extra yellow, right? Because they have extra power, so it's, you know, it's more lightning tinging them. And then you have, of course, the red Fulgur blooms, which have the most lightning power tinging them. Which is interesting, again, because obviously they don't retroactively add those to the base game. They keep the current stuff we have. So, like, you know, the battle has regular Fulgur blooms, even though you got, like, you know, Fortisax with his, like, big crazy lightning and stuff. So, I guess you could say it's a creative liberty taken. I guess you could also argue that maybe because there's been so much longer, prolonged, and more intense fighting over Bale that the red Fulgur blooms are showing up more commonly. And then that power gets passed on to the sheep, who then spread across the Realm of Shadow and start spreading, you know, Fulgur blooms, you know, the yellower ones, which are stronger but not as strong as the red Fulgur Bloom stuff, as they find new areas to graze, right? I think it's probably the best, you know, harmonization of the DLC with the base game and stuff. I think it'd be obvious that if the DLC came out, like, you know, with the base game, they would have put red Fulgur Blooms in Farm Azula, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's the red gold lightning in the wild. Yeah. All of it makes sense with the idea that, like, the Farm Azula is the first. It's the first to benefit. Oh, this is. I think this is probably one of the best examples of the growing out the heart thing. Yeah, I love this. How does the Battle of Agni Court affect Queen Marika's legacy? I don't know. You have to ask. Martin. I'm sure he has some ideas. Ask him for his inspirations. There's a corpse with Fulgur Blooms on it in the Wyrmfirst area of FA2. Yeah, which makes sense again. You have some growing there, some which, you know, people have picked and stuff like that. All that's consistent stuff, right? So, again, I'm really just kind of take it as, you know, they have the natural passive red lightning and stuff, but, you know, it's not this very intense or happening. You know, it's not like a battle's happening there or anything, right? So there's not happening that often where you're going to have Fulgur Blooms, you know, lightning striking and, you know, Fulgur Blooms spawning to attract more lightning to strike and all that stuff. Compared to what we see here, where apparently even the red Fulgur Blooms just turn these sheep gold, right? Which, again, I'm fine with. I'm totally okay with that. I like the idea that you have a bunch of sheep who were affected and they spread across the lands between from there, right? You know, they're doing their migrating thing for, you know, greener pastures, as it were. And they take some of that power with it, and it just, like, you know, gradually decreases in power. But then you have, you know, on the mainland, that thing doesn't really happen often, because, you know, there's not a lot of places for, you know, regular lightning strikes to be happening with, you know, that any degree of power worthy of spawning a Fulgur Bloom. But then you, in the one case in Altus, where the battlefield is, you got those sheep who are grazing there, and they also turn gold in a similar degree, right? So, I think that's all fine by me. I think it works. Looks like tungsten? Maybe. Alright, so you have the statues, right? You find a large collection of them when you're approaching usually Dragon Canyon areas. You find this evidence of, like, a fort here. You know, we have... Xavier, I'm really liking your idea now of the idea of these, like, embered corpses representing, like, you know, brave, powerful warriors. And I guess they're, like, spirits, you know, heat them up or whatever and cause them to burn and potentially turn to ash. I'm liking that idea more than more. I also really love the burnt, you know, battle, you know, the scar of the flame here from when this, like, you know, guy got stabbed or whatever. Like, he still had time to, like, you know, breathe some fire as he took his last breath, you know, as it were, literally. Then, of course, we get our favorite. Look at what they're doing! They're spilling all the heart blood! Listen, we only have so much for burning here for communion. How could they spill some of their fuel? Tisk tisk. Look at it. It's going all the way over the edge down here. It should be funny if there's actually some of those flowers down there. Like, just a random little spot where they put, like, one or two of them down there. That'd be so funny. Yeah, this area is the reason why I thought this is all burning corpses. Now, granted, you could always argue, but there's fire-breathing dragons there. But I like the idea. I think the idea of, like, big, strong, brave warriors, like, they have a fire, you know, there's some fire to their soul, you know. I definitely like that idea. So I'm going to be operating under that to see how consistent it proves. And if we, you know, if it proves incredibly consistent, then it might be worth mentioning somewhere. The Bale Heartblood plants in his arena are brighter colored. Oh, as in, like, the embered of them, or the actual flowers are brighter colored? The flowers? Okay. Because I'm about to be like, wow, the ember gets brighter the closer you get to Bale. Interesting. But no, it's just the flowers. Right. Which makes sense, because if we go with the idea that the power of the lightning is inversely proportional to the color and intensity of the color, so we go from Fulgur blooms to quote-unquote yellow Fulgur blooms to red Fulgur blooms, then, yeah, if we have even brighter red Fulgur blooms near Bale, that makes sense, because, like, Bale's lightning would presumably be some of the strongest, right? And Bale does use red lightning, right? I'm not wrong in saying that, right? Because Bale's in this weird state where it's like, he's kind of considered like a wyvern, but he's also not. It's like this weird in-between thing he's in. I've been really into the Song of Ice and Fire, like I said last stream, so expect lots of Targaryens. No problem, Tyrone. Right? No problem with me. Yeah, some of the burning bodies have different weapons. You see a good variety throughout the base game too. Would some of them be happy? I'm sure you could make a case that, hey, isn't it great that they're forever in prison stuff? But again, I think this is a personal vendetta. I think they really do just want to, like, I don't think you put that much manpower and effort into killing Bale, and then suddenly, like, he seems to disappear with your army, and you're not at the very least concerned about the fact that you have a bunch of forces that are stranded there, you know, fighting Bale all by their lonesome without support. Again, the also idea of, you know, what happens if Bale gets free? Again, there's no greater final solution than death. Right? Like, there's nothing more final. So I definitely think there's a case to be had, but I think just the way that it's handled and stuff, you know, it's not like America was like, hey, can I get your, hey, are you guys okay with me doing that and stuff? I think that was what was really souring relations. And I think it was just the problem with, I think the problem with FA, and I think this goes back to even before America's Kingdom and stuff existed, I think this is just a general idea. We don't really see Farm Azula expand. Like I said, the farm colonies is the closest we get, and it's basically them outsourcing the problem to their human followers, right? Like, it's the worshippers who are doing the whole expanding across, you know, different areas and stuff. Farm Azula itself seems pretty much seems to have zero interest in any of that. It has this very, again, it makes sense, right, because the whole thing is to be defensive, right, to protect the homeland, protect the graveyards, protect the capital, you know, preserve everything for when the god inevitably returns, because Placky's totally convinced that's going to happen, right? So I understand the idea of, like, you know, they think of themselves as, like, a rock boulder, and because of their whole idea of stone, it's solid, it's enduring, it's, like, you know, it's hardy, it's, you know, it's resilient to everything, that they think their idea is, okay, let's just sit like a rock and don't move. Like, we just stay, and we're just going to focus on doing our own thing, we're staying here, we're not expanding, we're not doing it right. And it's only when you, like, sort of get, you know, the one thing that they're really caring about, which is Bale. Like, this is the huge vendetta that they have above all else. Like, Bale is this vile, wicked, evil, terrible, like, you know, antichrist, you know, satanic figure to them, you know, the great adversary. And they want to really get rid of him, and then being deprived of that's going to be like, okay, hey, what the hell's going on here? What you doing, America? I think that the problem is just, like, you know, it's this idea of, okay, well, maybe we can, you know, it probably wasn't too hard to figure out after a good enough time, right? Okay, maybe this is the problem is, okay, but what do we do about that, right? Like, what are we supposed to do about this with the kingdom? I think I think that, along with other factors, which I talked about in the draft, I think with Grand Sacks, which I'll be honest, I was surprised by some. I was like, you know what? Yeah, you know what? These are some little oddities that definitely could be hinting at something deeper, right? I think when you combine it with the stuff with Grand Sacks and everything, I think it makes sense now. Like now, it all like makes sense in my head. I'm like, okay, yeah, this explains why the war happened, right? Why it happened then in there? Why not earlier? Why not there? Right? Just a combination of factors that has made it this really terrible disaster. Which, again, as I think I go over my draft, you could definitely see a way that the conflict could have been avoided, right? Like, obviously, you know, really bad blood, really bad tensions there. But I think there was definitely a diplomatic solution, in theory. I think the problem was that, like, no party, well, obviously, I think the Dragons, for sure, were, at the very least, you know, not totally, you know, behind the idea of trying diplomacy first. I think once the Grand Sex's attack happens, obviously the Erdtree Kingdom is not going to let that stand. America's going to be like, no, we are going to attack. I think it's only thanks to Godwin that anything resembling a, you know, peaceable solution was reached, you know, with, you know, at least Fortis Sax and Land Sax, you know. Yeah, as I talk about in my thread, I'm really suspicious of this and Gelmir. Like, if Gelmir is Ravenmount, I wonder if Jagged Peak served a similar function, but then, like, Bale moved it and forced the Crow people out. Or maybe the mother was already dead, and Bale just kind of moved into, like, her, you know, he decided he would just squat in the empty house, you know? By the way, I meant the Heartblood plants are Brighter Bale's Arena. Ah, you're right. I was mixing them up with the red Fulgur Bloom. Sorry, yeah, my brain, you know, I got some wires crossed there. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Something tells you Bale's not above Crow genocide. Yeah, but neither would the Great Snake, I would assume, right? Which is why I'm like, okay, I could definitely see the Great Snake, like, eating Crow Mama. I think, I could definitely see Deathbirds being like, oh, Snake's here. You know, kind of like that image we see in the Acheron Black Swan trailer, where, like, you know, there's the swan, and it's, like, getting attacked by the snake, and the snake, you know, tears the swan down to the bones or whatever. I think that's what could have happened to the mama. Except she was already bone, so there's nothing left after you strip that. Man. Yeah, I'd be resentful too if I got killed by terrible, evil dragons, you know? I think if Egon shows us is that some of these guys, they got some grudges. Curse you, Braille! Do you think FA regularly ate drakes before Bale's rebellion? No, I don't think so. I think the wyverns were probably second-class citizens, maybe. But I don't think there was this idea of, like, you know, killing them and wanton slaughter and the zeal to, like, you know, destroy them until after Bale. I think that it's this idea of, like, you know, like the sins of the father, you know. If Bale is the original, you know, quote-unquote, Bale's the original dragon. We also have Grail, who's supposed to be the mother of dragons, which I've understood to mean that Bale was, like, the first to become a proper quote-unquote dragon, but then Grail was also born afterward, and then they got together as, like, fellow outcasts and had all the other dragons, right? I assume the idea of separating them as dragons and stuff is kind of arbitrary because, you know, Grail and Bale, for all intents and purposes, are kind of treated like I said, there's definitely, like, very much a, oh, they're basically ancient dragons, right? So I think it all ties together. I guess it depends on when you think Crow Mama kicked the bucket. Yeah, I'd have to go, like, if I ever get to doing Deathbirds and stuff, that'd be one of the things I have to think about is, like, okay, when exactly does Crow Mama, leave the picture, exactly, right? When is it just the Deathbirds doing the duties on her behalf or whatever, or her legacy, right? Like, I could see a case you can make, right? And again, I don't necessarily subscribe to this, but I think you can make a case that, Dominula and all the cultures and stuff there are actually a result of, you know, Marika meeting the Serpent, and then Marika, through her wars on the Altus, unify the plateau or whatever, and she's the reason that the snake takes over and they kill the Deathbird Mama or something like that, right? Like, I don't believe that's actually, I don't think that's the case. I think there's a few problems I have with that in terms of the timeline and, like, all the other events that we know happen and stuff, but, I could see I could definitely see an argument be made there, right? And you can make, the case that, you know, it's actually not until Marika that, anything, you know, really happens to death. Either way, it is very ironic given what we have with Will Might Queen happening on Gelmir later. Slimes are from Ancient Dragons, Loki. They appear near where you find ancient dragon smithing stones and spawn in Sedanax's arena after you kill them. As in, after you kill Sedanax or whatever? So you're saying that it's his corpse flesh? Okay, okay. That'd be a little unusual because we, you know, usually we see it in the context of humans, but sure, I can buy that. Okay. A bit weird considering how we see so many dead dragons just petrify. But hey, you know, I guess when you have a big grudge, when you become a big grudge, no time to turn to stone, right? Gotta keep moving. You're ready to have a Game of Thrones problem and get too big with too many plot lines. You can have complete Myers storylines like that. Well, okay, so here's my opinion on stuff like with Elden Ring and things. Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3 add the lore. There are a lot of things. You can even argue there are a lot of different crazy plot lines and stuff. But again, when you took it on each like individual game or whatever, it was perfectly fine and enough, right? I think it's just inevitable that as a game gets larger, you're going to have more to say. At the same time, I think that most of the real big, the big picture stuff, I think has been given out between the base game and the, you know, the DLC. I think we already have, like, all the major events happening in the timeline and stuff. Everything else will be, like, little details and things, stuff to help flesh out or, you know, add little, like, nuances or vignettes within the storylines and things, right? Like, for Night Rain, obviously it's going to be its own side story, but I think most of its lore and stuff is going to be adding context and giving more information on different aspects and areas of the world. It's not going to start creating, like, these brand new complicated plot lines that are going to force us to completely recontextualize everything we see in the original game now or not. Maybe if it's, like, something really big picture dealing with the cosmos or something, right? But I think, generally speaking, probably all the hints are already here in the base game. And it's something where, if you do a good enough job, like, analyzing the base game, we're going to basically have all, like, you know, I think in total it would be probably somewhere between, if I had to guess, maybe somewhere between, like, 30, 35, like, major, you know, plot threads and stuff. And I'm talking about, like, you know, Nox, Ancient Dynasty, you know, America's Kingdom under Godfrey, America's Kingdom under Radagon, you know, like, those types of ideas, right? Maybe if you want to subdivide to like some of the different conflicts or areas, like the Ancient Dragon War, the Power of Azul, right? I think if you add that up, there's a decent amount, but it's very much digestible. But I don't know, we'll see. I could totally be wrong. Yeah, I get what you mean though, Tyrone, with adding like TV shows and stuff. The thing is, I don't think any TV shows or things are going to be able to overly complicate stuff more than we already have it. Again, I guess it could depend on the writers and stuff. You know, you could like get Game of Thrones writers or something coming up here, and they're like, oh, we gotta make it like Game of Thrones, so we gotta add like a bunch of little itty bitty, you know, complicated bits or whatever, right? Yeah, I don't know how. Again, depends on how they handle it though. But I personally think that the way they have it all set up, I think they already have the framework. It's just a matter of Miyazaki being like, okay, these are like the plot beats we need and all that stuff. And then if there's any like added complexity, it's gonna be in the smaller details and things. Nothing that's gonna really like, you know, move and shake the entire lore. Sharp Gravelstones are generally found in the heads of the dead drakes near Sedanax's arena. Did Sedanax kill them, or did they eat each other to communion into greater dragons? depends on... I think it depends on whether or not it works both ways, where if you have a dragon supping up on ancient dragon blood, it works the same way as ancient dragon supping up on dragon blood, if that makes sense, right? Because presumably the idea is if they're descendants slash ancestors of each other, it's just the point of, you know, you having the more blood of others, the more, the denser the stone and the sharper the gravel, potentially. Also, the argument could be made that the blood of the gravel stone is mixing in with yours. It's kind of like weaponizing, so it's kind of like, you know, magnifying the scales or whatever to create these, like, spikier spots. Is there a hole in that dead dragon's chest? There might be. Depends on the model. Let's look. Nope, doesn't look like it. Yeah, it's normal. Yeah, no. Oh my god. Yeah, no. Isn't this the model they use in, or some variation of it they use in, Dragon Barrel, right? Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Xavier, with the lightning and stuff with Bale. I get you. Because Bale has, like, the lava association, so I get the idea of making it more orange for most of the fight. But that has a little bit of that red and stuff, right? Yeah, that makes sense to me. When that's back, no, that's its belly. It's laying down. This is its back. Right? Or is that its belly? Maybe. Because the back was more spiky, right? That's about the same. Nah, there's a little, yeah, there's more frills here on the corners here. I don't think that's there. Either way, no hole in the chest. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so, yeah, there's the bumps here. Okay, yeah, this is the back. Can't but wonder how alive the dragons are after death. Well, from what we're told, dying dragons don't always die, right? That's the whole point of the zombie dragons, right? Just because you kill a dragon doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna completely die forever, right? So we see some dragons who, like, petrify and stuff, right? But clearly that's not all of them. Well, ancient dragons, I should say, we see petrify. But there's definitely cases where we see, well, we're not quite seeing that. They're turning to bones, and then, you know, the bones are, you know, reviving. Who do you think the god of the dragons is, Loki? I can't remember what your idea was. I think it's a separate woman. I think it's the woman enshrined in Farum Azula, right? So, like, I don't think there's, like, this grand... I don't think there's much to say about like, who I think the identity is. Because it's one of these things where it's, like, the identity is she's the god of Farum Azula. Like, that's the long and short of it. Now, I have said, I fully believe that she's a Newman. I think she's one of the Newmen that came down from their other world, quote-unquote. I think she's the first god and stuff like that. Again, did she come down with a mission? Was this something that they thought on their own? Like, you can always make the arguments there. But I very much think the idea was that, you got woman wanting to become god with Elden Ring. You got Placky being selected as her Elden Lord. And then you got them essentially, you know, with the help of the Greater Will, manipulating Beastmen and stuff, so that way they can become, what's the word? You know, they can become, you know, civilized and form, you know, they can build their stone capital for them. Drakes also have Flame Lightning. Oh, they have Flame Lightning in FA? I don't recall that. Well, that's cool. Alright, chat, I think we're going to end things here. I looked at the stuff I got. Some cool things. Nothing too crazy on the shot side. I think I got most of the shots that I want already. Like I said, I think the biggest problem here is that this FA has the particles here, so it very much limits what I can get for shots that I don't personally find distracting. But hey, I guess that just gives me an excuse to maybe to maybe move on with one of my characters and get them to FA already. FA has 14 golden arrows, which work against undead. Could this indicate battles once the death root was here? No, I think I think you can make the argument for gameplay reasons that they would want to do that, but no, I don't think that has anything to do with you know, anyone from Langdell trying to fight off Deathblight or something. I think it's just an indicator that yeah, the second, you know, if you want to consider Grand Saxon attack the first, you know, I don't know whether or not, like, that's technically the truth, the way the Japanese words it at least, but if you want to consider Grand Saxon attack the first, I think the counterattack on the Dragon Capital was the second battle, right? And I think those arrows and a few other items are all meant to, you know, allude to that. And then you have the final battle that Godwyn and the demigods have. Here, right? And getting buried in Saint Hero's grave, and then getting all salty because Godwyn basically betrays them to become a dragon hugger. He pulls a firstborn. Actually, you know what? I just realized. Yeah, you know what? Godwyn pulls a firstborn. He quote unquote betrays his own people in order for on the promise that they can become like dragons. He's like, hey, let's all learn their lightning and stuff. I swear. From Software, they never run out of ideas because they just keep using the same ones. It's just recycling. Yeah, I think with the quote unquote AOK shield and all that, I think it's the or AOE I should be saying, just to keep it consistent. But I think with the AOE shield, I think it's just a matter of like representing, you know, fighting against, you know, deadly forces and stuff like that. You never realized God was a firstborn XP until now? I never really thought of it, to be honest, right? Like I don't really again, I said it before, guys. I think we have so much Godwyn lore already. Like I know people are like, "Oh my god, we got to have more." So I'm like, "No, we already have plenty more." Like I think we have so much, I just don't really think about it cuz like it's so, you know, there and straightforward for me for the most part. So I've never really thought about, like, you know, sort of the parallels that Godwyn has with other characters in the franchise. The Dragossi must hit different and makes all these firstborns change their beliefs. It's funny, too, because, like I've said before, I don't even think that Godwyn is the firstborn. I think he's just a prince. I actually think he's probably one of the later ones. You know, as far as, like, you know, Age of Plenty demigods is concerned. We already got it, India. No, but yeah, I love the idea, like, you know, big major popular prince or whatever, you know, goes off to hug dragons. Anyway, I'm gonna end things here for today, though, guys. Thanks so much again for you know keeping me company as always. Really appreciate you. Gonna be heading off now. Bye bye.